Hi, you are listening to Rocklaz Radio,
a podcast discussing inspiring personalities and interesting things. This is your host, Tanmay Shah.
Tanmay is an India-based NFT artist and an entrepreneur with diverse business experience.
This podcast is self-sponsored.
The best way to support this show is to buy his art, NFTs. You can also become his patron. Kindly share this episode on socials and with your friends.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rocklaz Radio. On today's show, we have a very special guest who I have been looking forward to, and it's an honor and a pleasure to have Rachel with us. So, Rachel Wilkins is a Web3 consultant, marketing strategist, and co-founder of Conception Arts, an organization that has helped over 5,000 artists on 2 continents. Wilkins is the host and producer of NFT Plus Coffee, an award-winning smart art business podcast, and author of the book Sell Out, the definitive guide to selling your art online. Dubbed as Art's Crusader by Huffington Post. Yes, she is indeed. It's Art Crusader. Wilkins has been featured by the Wall Street Journal, Paper Magazine, and ABC News. Wilkins is the recipient of New York Business Journal Women of Influence and Women of Influence Award, and was recently named in the 40 Under 40 LGBTQ Leaders by Business Equality Magazine. So, Rachel, welcome to the show. So happy to have you.
Oh my goodness, Tammy. Thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to finally make time to do this. So thank you.
Let's go. So I'm directly going to dive into questions as for the time constraint.
I got my coffee. I'm ready. Let's do it.
So you might not have spoken this on many spaces, or not many people don't know about you. So please tell us your story, your life story so far.
Wow, that's a big question. How long you got?
How?
No, I will keep it to the most relevant. But essentially, I grew up in Liverpool. I'm originally from Liverpool. Actually, I have my Liverpool cup with me this morning. So born and raised in England, and kind of grew up in a culture that doesn't really necessarily champion the artist as a career. So, went through kind of the same thing that a lot of artists do, and I picked the career that would provide me with an income. And unfortunately, I just was not lit up at all. And I found myself in my mid-20s just thinking, what am I doing? I was in like a recruitment type of position, like a corporate job. And I just didn't feel like my soul was satisfied. I felt like there was this yearning for more. And art had always been something incredibly important to me. Since I was a child. That was if you found. I grew up an only child. I do have siblings, but if you couldn't find me, you'd likely find me in a corner with some crayons and making something from nothing. So it'd always been a passion, but of course, never really thought that it would be something that I could make a career out of, let alone make any money. And so I had a very strange and surreal last minute opportunity to go to New York City for a week. And during that trip, which was again very kind of last minute, I had met somebody. I did the long distance love, and ultimately that relationship didn't work out. But something kept me in the States. Something was pulling me towards New York City. And what my time in New York City gave me was it just reignited this fire in me to revisit my creativity. And I think anybody who's ever spent time in New York City as a creative knows there's something in the streets, right? There's something underneath that concrete jungle that just is a pull to artists. And so found myself surrounded by a bunch of other artists, creatives, musicians, and just started to, just enjoy myself. I was in my 20s. We were making art. We were making music. A lot of fun. Nothing, kind of concrete like this is a business. And then slowly but surely I started to have my own success, but it didn't look like the traditional pathway of how an artist makes a career, right? I didn't get gallery representation. I didn't kind of follow the conventional path, but instead I really just used the marketing skills that I had learned working in a corporate job and applied them to my art. And essentially I was able to build a pretty solid art business. I had collectors all over New York City. I had exhibits. I was able to make 6 figures in a year just selling my artwork, which was amazing, right, at that time. And so basically I did that for several years. And then I realized that there was another part of me that was not fulfilled. And that was the desire to help others, right? That's always been something that's been a big driving passion of mine. And what I didn't want other artists to experience was some of the negativity that I experienced. Just as an example, I had a door closed in my face by a gallerist. So I had dealt with a lot of rejection, a lot of old ideas. And so from there, we essentially, my wife and I started a business which is called Conception Arts. And over 10 years, we built a business that essentially gave artists who were underrepresented, so artists who didn't have a trust fund, didn't have the big connections, didn't have all these things that the elite have. We gave them a place to be able to showcase their work, to be able to have community, and to be able to develop themselves both as creatives and as professionals. So yeah, that was 2011. We founded that business. 2021, like a lot of people, the pandemic happened. And so, yeah, that kind of brings us up to 2021, but I don't want to be a talking head. So please go ahead.
10 years. Wow.
Yeah. It's been amazing.
I'm going to use a couple of your quotes because I've heard your podcast and heard you on Spaces. So you say best marketing does not feel like marketing. So can you explain that more and how it should be done?
Let's just say that the best marketing is the antithesis of a shill, right? You essentially, a shill is you going out and saying, hey, buy my stuff, right? You're creating the push, right? You're pushing people to essentially come and buy what you have to sell. And that could be anything. That could be an NFT, it could be a painting, it could be a closet, whatever. What I mean when I say that marketing shouldn't feel like marketing is that instead of creating that push, you want to create the pull, right? You want to pull people towards you. And you do that in several different ways. You don't do that by standing on the top of a mountain with a megaphone. That is, you expressing and shouting and pushing. Instead, what you do is you create story, right? You create desirability. You create a brand that appeals to people. You tell stories through your artwork, you network discreetly and with intention, and you use your human skills. You be a human. And instead of trying to, target collectors, you get to know people and you use those human skills, those soft skills that we really do all possess, like storytelling. One of the things that I hear a lot from people when I start talking about this method of marketing is, well, I'm not a storyteller. Right? Like somebody will say, well, I'm not good at telling stories. And I always push back on that because as human beings, your ancestors, Tanmay, my ancestors, have been sitting around campfires for thousands of years telling stories, right? Coming back after the day of being out hunting or cooking or whatever else and recounting their day. So I truly believe that anybody can learn how to tell good stories. It's just about taking the time and understanding what the story is within your work, within your NFTs, and just getting really good at telling it. And all that is practice.
And where should be the story told? How to find the right collector or how to go about it? And by the way, the Liverpool Cup reminds me of You'll Never Walk Alone.
That's right.
It has written on it. Yeah.
Right there. Yep, that's my team. So I think it depends, first of all, what you're trying to sell, right? If we're talking about NFTs and art, one of the biggest, I think, mistakes is that people they believe that there exists, or they've been brainwashed to believe that there exists this magical group of collectors, right? This collector community, and your job is to get your work in front of them the same as everybody else, right? So what that does is it creates this scarcity mindset, right? It creates a mindset where we say to ourselves as artists, I need to get in front of that collector before this artist and before this artist. And that is so counterproductive. We've been pitted as artists against each other for so long, but really when we come together as a community, we do so much better. There's so much more possibility for collaboration, for learning, for growth. So in terms of like how to position yourself in front of the right people, I think the best thing that we can do is to understand who are the right people for your artwork, right? Who resonates with your work. And there is a little bit of work to be done to figure out who those people are. But one of the best things that you can do is to look at your collectors, like look at your recent collectors, anybody who's ever purchased your work, and see if there's any commonalities, right? Are these people of a certain age? Are they of a certain demographic? Do they reside in a specific country? Start to identify patterns. When you can see patterns, it gives you the information that you need to be able to go out and find more people like that. Now, I get it. If you're somebody who is just starting out, you're, just coming into the NFT space and you don't maybe have collectors, that can be very difficult. So one of the things that I recommend most is get really clear on what you're trying to say, right? I think we can all safely say that we're trying to say something with our artwork, right? We're trying to convey something. But what is it? What is it about you, Tanmay? What is it about your work that speaks to you, right? What is it that drives you? Can you answer? I don't mean to interview you, but is that something that you can see clearly?
I mean, do you want me to answer that? Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about workshop.
That's awesome. So for me, art is about exploring and experimenting. I believe that I'm a scientist at heart, so I'm always trying different mediums and styles. So it's not a cohesive collection. You'll see that it looks like it's done by many other artists. So it has its own challenges, but yeah, it is like that.
And that's okay, right? There are times where I think we can be explorers, we can be excavators of our ideas. I think every artist needs time to be that part of that segment of your life where you're expressing, right? You're trying to find your creative voice, you're trying to find your visual language, but you're just having fun with it. That's okay. As you kind of get to the point where your visual language becomes more clear to you and more identifiable to others, you can start to think about who this particular style, who your artist journey resonates with most. Now, you said something there that I would pick up on, which was, you're like a scientist, right? You are experimenting, you're in the lab, you're, playing around with different tools and different resources and different methods. That's interesting, right? But who would that be interesting to? Probably other people who think and act like you do. So when you understand that there's commonalities at the personality level, at the just general human ethos level, you can start to tap into those communities. Now, again, that might seem like a bit of an abstract statement, and it is easier to adopt this method if you have a little bit more clarity on who exactly you're trying to reach. Now, here's a more kind of bold example. So last year, 2021, or actually 2020, during the pandemic, I started to revisit my own artwork after, a long period of time, a long hiatus running Conception Arts. And I found myself in a situation where I was like, if I'm going to do my own work, it needs to be for a reason. Like I need something compelling to work towards, because I just felt like a lot of people during the pandemic, I needed like tunnel vision. I needed something that was going to shut out all that noise and that just grief, right, that we were all feeling. And so I decided to listen and learn about LGBTQ heroes, right, that had essentially paved the way for LGBTQ people. And I started to profile them, and I created these portraits. And for a month, I created portraits of 30 LGBTQ heroes, right? Harvey Milk, Edie Windsor, just 30 amazing, amazing humans. And so I didn't know at the time what I was going to do with that work. I had no intention of showing it. I had no intention of, I was doing it for me, right? I was doing it as a focus and also as a way to learn more about these amazing people. Now, a year later, I had all this work and I started kind of coming into the NFT space, and I was looking at this work. I'm like, this should not sit in my studio, right? This needs to be out. And so instead of just posting this work and thinking, okay, let's wait for the right collectors, I got incredibly niche with who I targeted. Now, again, this is a very bold example. It's kind of glaringly obvious where I would target. And not everybody has that in their artwork, right? But I knew that the people that would resonate the most with this work were not the broad, fictitious group of collectors. It was LGBTQ people, because these individuals that I was creating portraits of meant something to them. And so I was able to really target my marketing. I was able to tap into meetup groups. I was able to tap into, business organizations that align with LGBTQ communities. And when I was able to get super targeted like that, I was able to reach the people that really cared about what I was doing. And so I know probably some people that are watching this don't have such a clear, perhaps, identity to their work as I did at that point, but look for the patterns in your work. Like, what is it? Is it something culturally that you're expressing because you've been through some cultural experience that means something to you? Is it the materials that you use? Are they something that perhaps you can educate your audience on? Or is it maybe some socioeconomic experience in the world that moves you? If so, find more people that resonate with that topic, with that thing. And that's how you build your collectors.
Wow. So it's a more about introspecting and finding a common channel and then finding similar collectors. So with the Web3 tools, with NFTs, do you think it's a good idea to do reverse search on Foundation or other places to see people who have bought with the same hashtags that have in the painting or something? I mean, I got the suggestion. I haven't tried it myself. Just wanted to ask.
I'm all for tech experiments like that. There was a technique that I used to teach that worked incredibly well, which sounds like kind of a similar vibe. I would essentially look at artists who had a similar genre of work to me. It didn't have to be the same style, but I would say look at people whose work you could see in the same collector's wallet as you, right? Mm-hmm. Or the same, hanging in the same home. Doesn't have to be the same type of work, but it should have that similar kind of aesthetic. And what I would do is I would recommend going and finding artists that fit that mold, and then seeing who is interacting with them, seeing who is commenting on their posts. I had a situation where I did just that, and I followed one of the collectors that was commenting on a certain artist's piece of work. And guess what? That person became one of my biggest collectors because, wow, of course, she saw that interaction, came over to my Instagram page, obviously liked what she saw, hit follow. And before you know it, I'm putting work in front of her that I know she likes. And so she became one of my biggest collectors. But the important thing here is to note that it didn't take away anything from that other artist, right? So ethically, I was very comfortable with it because I wasn't creating work that was identical to this artist, right? It was very different. but it was fitting that same aesthetic. So I think if you're going to do anything like that kind of reverse search, just, take a kind of, I always say, take a moral temperature test. Is this something that you would want done to you, right? Is this something that, does this person's work look a lot like yours? Then maybe take a step back, right? Maybe rethink that decision. But if it's not something that is direct competition, then sure, why not? We have the technology at our fingertips. I say use it in, a way that's going to help you get your work in front of more people. I'm all about creative marketing.
Let's go. Another quote from you, which I really liked. You're commenting on trends or people running after trends. You said it's like you're traveling in a boat, but you're not reaching the island. Every time you see a ship going by, you jump on the other boat, another ship. You're just jumping ships, but never reaching the island. So can you elaborate that and how to reach the island?
This is one of the hardest ones for me. As somebody who is creative and as somebody who also has ADHD.
Exactly.
It's hard.
Everything
right?
seems attractive and this is.
And we live in like an attention economy, right? Like everything pulls us, especially being online as much as we are and as you are, Tanmay. Like we're people that spend a lot of time on social media. So we're constantly bombarded with like images and, this is doing really well. And the next day, this style might be doing really well. And so it's really hard when you are working towards something that is personal to you. It goes back to that, that finding your voice, finding your own form of visual language. When you're in that and you see other people having success doing other styles, or even worse, if you see several people having success doing the same style of work, it can be really hard to come out of your kind of tunnel vision, to not come out of that. So, the kind of analogy of the boats is something that I call like the island theory, right? If you're on an island and you are, in your kind of lane, in your tunnel, working on your artwork, and you're developing and you're getting, more and more experienced, and you're crafting, you're perfecting your craft, and you're excavating your ideas, that's bringing you closer to that other island because you are on that path. There's no distractions and you are becoming the best version of you, right? Most importantly, when you start seeing other people have success and you say, oh, that person's doing, abstract photography. Maybe I should do abstract photography. What happens? You stop moving forward and you move sideways, right? You get on that other boat. And what happens is this boat that you were originally on goes nowhere. So every time we do that, we're taking away energy from our true purpose, our true calling. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get influenced as artists. I think we all absorb and take in, the amazing plethora of creatives that exist around us, but it's making that choice. Like, am I here to, carve out my own voice, to be authentic to myself, whether the sales are coming right now or not, right? And sometimes that's the most difficult part, I think, for us is like, if we're reliant upon that paycheck, if we're reliant upon that sale, we often get distracted from that cause. So I think just, understanding that trends will come and go, that you will see, certain things that are in fashion and are popular for certain periods of time, but that will constantly be in flux. So you have to make a decision. Are you going to be reactive to what's happening around you, or are you going to stay the course and continue to push yourself and your own visual language and your own message and say what you want to say and not what somebody else wants to say?
Absolutely. This is a thought that somebody needs to take and like pause the video or audio and like think on it.
It's hard. It's a hard look. Again, this is not something that I've personally struggled with this a lot. One other thing I would add on to that, Tanmay, is that if you switch, right, if you see, let's say you're a fine artist and you switch to photography because you see this person having success. By the time that person is having success, they're usually at the end of a very long journey to get that success. They've done a lot of groundwork to get that success. When you switch gears because you think that success is happening and it looks easy, you're right at the bottom, right? Who knows, by the time you start to do all of the things needed to get to that level of what that person is doing, they've probably moved on to something else and some other form of expression. So anytime you kind of switch gears to follow trends, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball.
That's very true. Because I'm trying with so many art styles and technologies, I experience that very often. Like every time I try something new, I have to start from scratch, and then I become a beginner, and then learning that and coming up and that.
But
So
that's
I
also
think,
really cool that you're experimenting, and I think that's what's amazing about Web3, right? It's playful.
so for example, I had never done coding in my life, but I was so fascinated by interactive art. You can move your cursor over the screen, and that art changes according to your interaction with it. So for that, I have to. It's very tough. But like when you want to learn something new, you don't see the results immediately. It's a long curve, learning curve. So
It is, but good
that
for you for trying it, right? Some people are intimidated by that, and you're willing to experiment, and that's exciting.
yeah. Well, from this continuing the same thought, you mentioned people come in the pressure when they're not selling. So we are in a bear market right now. It's or people who had come in when it was on the top, they had come with a lot of expectation, but it's not meeting. It has just gone lower and lower. So what would you suggest to those artists or those NFT artists? Is it just about price or burning the NFT or waiting, or what are the things that they can that can be done?
I think that there's a big problem here in that we have created, and this is all because of what happened in 21, but we've created this concept that if you do not sell out right away, that you are a failure, right? That you have failed in some way. And I had an artist on one of my Twitter spaces, and, she was struggling and she'd not sold. And, I could hear that frustration in her voice. And she said, I've been doing this for so long, like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I said to her, well, how long have you been doing this? And she said about 6 weeks. And look, it took a lot, like, for me to not laugh. And I mean that in the most respectful way, because first of all, that was not her fault, right? She had been conditioned to believe that because she'd been doing all of the things that she's seeing successful people do, she followed that playbook and she wasn't selling out. She was thinking she was a failure, which is absurd. It took years for me to feel like I had any measure of success in the art world. Years. Even sometimes now I'm like, was that successful? Was it not? I don't know. But we need to kind of slow things down a little. Like, I know we get tired of hearing we're early, but we really are. 2 years ago, we didn't even have this economy, right? This economy didn't exist. The speed at which this economy is developed is like unlike anything else, right? But because of the type of people that are here, because of the energy, because of the enthusiasm, the excitement, and all of the big stories, the Beeples of the world, the Drifter Shoots of the world, all of these huge projects that have sold millions and billions of dollars, we've come into this like unreal expectation level, right? We're just thinking that if we don't sell out, we're failures. And I want to say that is absolutely not true. It's not the case. We have to probably just think about this in more long-term, ways. Like, what are we going to be doing in 5 years? What are we going to be doing in 10 years time? And I get it. I think a lot of people came here because of the promise of financial security, but I don't think that the artist, artwork, collector model is it. I don't think that's it. I think we're going to see more ways for us as creatives to carve out career paths for ourselves that don't involve that very simplistic, old, antiquated way of artists making money, I think we're going to see something much more advanced and much more exciting. So yes, I hear the struggle. I get it. I absolutely get it. I hear it every day. But I just would like people to just get a little perspective, right? And look at where you are, how long you've been doing this, and you're probably doing really, really great. Just embrace that a little more and know that we're all extremely early. #we're early, all of the things.
That's why you're the best person to talk to. You have over 10 years of experience in real art, fine art, before coming to NFTs. So you have the best of both worlds. You're from a marketing background. You have written books and podcasts. So you're the absolute best person to speak to. About collectors and that model that you mentioned, artist, art, and collector. I always wonder how is art valuable to society, or what kind of problem are artists solving? So is it just about decorating somebody's house or getting something on digital wall, or like what is it? What is it that the artists are doing for society?
That is such a great question. My goodness. I don't think I've ever been asked that question, and it's so rich. I think artists are exceptional. I do. I think artists are the great narrators of life, right? We've seen so much, fake information, propaganda, all this just nonsense that has come with having the internet, right? We're just bombarded with information, but there's something so pure and so exceptional about creatives, because we get to live vicariously through their individual life experience when we look and experience their art. There's nothing like that. It's an incredibly human thing to do, right? To express. And I think that artists are so neglected in terms of how the respect that they're given, or lack thereof, in how the world functions. Now, if you think about it, everything starts with creativity. Everything. Elon Musk creating a humongous rocket to send it into space started with creativity, right? It started with him probably sitting with a pen and paper and scribbling something down, right? He had vision. Artists are the visionaries. They're the people that are able to create something from nothing. Whether you believe that they're channeling an idea from somewhere above, or whether you believe it's just an innate draw to create, I think art is profound. I think art has the ability to heal people. I think I've seen that happen. I think art has the ability to evoke emotion in even the most, stone-clad, solid hearts in the world. I've seen people be moved to tears by a piece of artwork. I've seen art, create war, create death. Look at the Charlie Hebdo. That could create such venom in people that they were killed. Art is a responsibility. Artists have a responsibility, but it is also incredibly profound and incredibly, I think, there's something about the artist that we need to celebrate more, and that is their ability to be able to create something from nothing, right? To channel their emotions, to channel their life experiences and put it on canvas, or put it in a photograph, or put it, as an NFT. And that is something that I can't think of anything else, any other career, any other, practice that gives that profound emotional experience.
Wow. Thank you. I want to have a dedicated podcast recording for this specific topic, having more thought leaders like you and diving deeper into this. So I'm just going to go on to the next questions with respect to your time. Another quote from you that I really enjoyed and was spot on was how do you close, or how do you ask that final question to the collector, or in the elevator, or in the elevator or pitch? So you say, are you in the ask them if they are in the art market, or if they are in the NFT market? And if they say yes or no, ask them if they can visualize this on their wall or their collection.
Yep.
So that is so amazing. So combined with this question, I would like to ask you how to network in a conference or an event where a lot of people are coming up. Of course, we have these conferences on a daily basis on Spaces, but what do you think about the real life conferences?
That's a really great question. So, networking is a skill, but it's not a skill that you can't learn. And people always assume that I'm very extroverted because I do a lot of this, but I'm actually very introverted in certain settings. And so it can be a challenge sometimes to be in that environment with a lot of people that you don't know. I relate to that. Some days it feels good, some days it feels challenging. But so some of the things that I've learned over the years is set yourself a goal when you go to that event, right? Set yourself a goal of walking away with at least 3 new people's contact information. When you have that in mind, when you have that kind of goal, you're much more likely to act on it, right? You're much more likely to not take the easy route out of standing in a corner and getting a drink from the bar, right? You're more likely to introduce yourself. Also remember that everybody probably feels the same, right? Everybody feels a little bit awkward. Everybody feels like they want to meet new people. So just be open to the fact that we're all probably feeling that, that way too. But also, and I think this is extremely important, somebody said to me once, when you're at a conference, don't be a donut, be a croissant. Now you might be thinking, why are we talking about pastries? A croissant would be when you're talking to somebody, you stand in a closed circle, right? You stand like a donut, right? You stand kind of in a group and you're closed off to other people coming in. When you stand like a croissant, you're opening up that circle and you're welcoming in new people. So I think just, try to be, when we take ourselves out of self, right? And we think about others, it often makes those challenges that we struggle with a lot easier. So if you go into those networking situations thinking, hey, I wonder if anybody else feels the way, feels awkward about being here, let me be welcoming to them. Sometimes that just takes the edge off those experiences. But, don't also go in with an ask. Like that's one of the worst things that you can do is to, pitch somebody at a conference, right? Pitch somebody when you first meet them. Like, just remember that everybody's a human, right? And everybody has human desires and human likes and wants to be communicated with like a human as opposed to how you see them as an opportunity. Now, I'm not saying that opportunity and that relationship can't be developed and that you can make that ask down the line, but just try to be authentic, right? Try to just get to know the person, right? Don't be like checking their CV on your phone and seeing what they can do for you. Just get to know people. And I think in Web3, we have such a great opportunity to meet, people that we would never normally meet in the real world. But, everyone that I've met that has some kind of stature or standing in, the community or business, just human beings, right? That's it. We want to make connections. We want to feel a part of. That's it. Just be a human.
One such insight that I would like to share. We had this like NFT NYC. We had our first event, which was sponsored by Nick, Tech Bubbles, and Nifty Dreams, and it was Namaste NFT event in Bangalore.
Right.
So I met so many people there, and I was genuinely curious of finding people over there, and I was asking the same question: what brings you to this event? How are you related to NFTs or crypto? And then it wouldn't take them time to talk, and I would also find it interesting because so many people from so many walks of life were coming in who had a little bit of information, or somebody who was an expert from 20, 30 years in crypto. There was a whole a variety of people like that, and I think that those conversations came back home as well. I was in touch with them, and one more thing which I decided to do was, as it was an NFT event, I made sure that I marked that event by giving everybody one of my NFTs. So I was like,
there you go.
Yeah.
That's creative.
Yeah. So I had a card with me, and that card had my profile picture. So I wrote their own name on it. I gave it to them. I said, "You send a snap of this to me, tag me, and on Twitter, and give me a wallet address. I will send
See,
you the."
that's marketing right there, Tanmay. You got it.
I'll send you the NFT. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was amazing.
that's one of the best things that you can do in marketing is to get people to take an action, right? You made that person do a couple of things. Follow you on Twitter, probably, right? You made them post your work, which is essentially them saying, hey, this is good work. And then you now have a connection and relationship to that person. And you have their wallet address probably because you sent them an NFT. So that's like a 10. That's like a 10 out of 10 on the marketing scale.
Wow, I didn't want to add this because it is about you, but I thought it was something cool to discuss.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
So I'm looking forward to meet you at NFT London as well. I'll also be a speaker there, so I'm looking really
Amazing.
excited for that.
Now, what are you speaking on? What's the topic?
So I thought the best thing to talk about was the thing that I wanted to learn myself, that I would. And of course, I have a lot of experience. I've been in for 18 months in this space. So my topic I chose was how to sell NFTs as a one-of-one artist. So
Nice. That's awesome. Very cool.
So what are some of your top tips for that? How should artists sell? I mean, those artists who are doing one-of-one art sell their artworks.
Stay true to your vision, number one. Find the story. That would be number two. Make sure that you have the story as to why you do what you do, what it is that motivates you. Learn how to tell that story succinctly. A lot of people have the story, but it's disjointed, right? So practice telling it in 2 minutes. Actually, practice telling it in 30 seconds, practice telling it in 2 minutes, and practice telling it in 20 minutes, because those are the times that you're going to need to tell it. 30 seconds is you get somebody in an elevator, we call it an elevator pitch, and you want to tell them what you do succinctly, you need to be able to do that really quickly. The 2 minutes is, when you get on the Twitter space and there's collectors in the room that may resonate with your work, how are you going to convey your story and invitation for them to buy in a way that is succinct in 2 minutes? And then the 20 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes is you doing what Tanmay's doing and getting on the stage at a conference and inspiring people and motivating people and educating people. So I think those are my top tips. Stay true to your vision, find the story, learn to tell the story, and also don't be afraid to ask for the sale. That is like a biggie, right? Don't ask everybody for the sale. Make sure that the people that you are asking for the sale are warmed up and interested in buying. But when you get to that point and that person is communicating with you and they're commenting and supporting your work and championing what you're doing, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
We don't ask enough.
We don't ask. It's intimidating to get in people's DM or even comment this, but
yeah.
Definitely will implement that, and I would request everyone to do that who is listening it. Thank you for that. About you also mentioned a lot about affiliate marketing and passive income. So just quoting you once again, you spoke about making out videos, making podcasts, or you even have written a book. So we'll talk. This question is about the book, and you talked about and affiliate marketing. Those products that you use, you can go and talk about it further. So can you tell us more about what is your book about? I was trying to go and buy that, but I couldn't find the link in the link tree. Is it published? Is it out?
Yeah, it's you can get it on Amazon. I think this is the publisher copy. This is not for resale, but I mean, the book really came about after, again, during the pandemic. I actually had some time to not be traveling around the country, going to our exhibits, and so I had all this information in my mind that, every time I went to a show and I would talk to artists about how to sell their work, how to present themselves, how to do branding, how to market, I had all this stuff, right? And so I'm like, what's the most effective way to be able to reach people? And I was doing it through the podcast, which is Smart Art Business. And that's, it's like 60 or 70 episodes in, and we were top 100 podcasts on Apple Podcasts for 2 years. So I knew I was reaching an audience. I knew there was a desire there. And so the book really just came about a way of me getting all this on paper and putting it out to be able to help people. And so, one of the most toxic things that has happened to artists over the last however many centuries is that we've been taught that selling out is a bad thing.
Bad thing.
Yeah. So sell out, right? A sellout, I don't know whether this translates in your native language, but the term sellout means like you kind of sold your soul to the devil, right? Like you basically took the money and left your kind of, put your soul out there. Like you don't care. In fact, I would love to look up the definition of what a sellout is. Maybe we'll do that after the session. But if you're watching this, Google sellout. So we've been taught that we shouldn't go out and try to make money, right? That we shouldn't go out and try to and be resourceful and, try to make a living for ourselves. Instead, what we should do is we should wait for the opportunities to come to us, right? We should wait to be invited to the art show. We should wait to be selected by the curator. We should wait for the collector to, grace us with their investment. And it's so toxic. It so goes against everything that we deserve as creatives. We deserve to make an income. We deserve to not be haggled with for the price of our artwork, right? Could you imagine anywhere else? Like, could you imagine going to a hair salon and getting your hair cut, and then you go to pay and the person says, okay, that's, $200. And you go, how about I give you $100? Right? You get thrown out. You would be thrown out. But it happens to artists all the time. And it happens because the way the world has functioned has told artists that they're less than, and that they are not worthy of success, and that they should not and cannot make a living. Right. So my primary goal with the book was to quash those beliefs and embrace the idea that artists can build a career. But we have to change the paradigm. We have to think more broadly about how we can have that success, right? It's not just, again, to revisit what we talked about earlier, it's not just about selling to a collector. There are other ways that you can make money as a creative. You can teach, right? If you know something, if you do something creatively, guess what? There's probably somebody out there that wants to learn how to do that, right? Teach, coach. Online learning is one of the fastest growing industries in the world right now. Online learning and at-home fitness. Those are the two things, not financial advice, but that's where we're going, folks. So what can you teach? Don't feel that you don't have something to say. You likely do, right? That's a way that you can make revenue. Affiliate marketing, I can certainly, help with that if anybody has more deeper questions related to that. But all that is recommending products and services that you use yourself, and that product or service giving you a kickback, right? Giving you a little bit of money for sending people their way. So there are a ton of ways that you can, really just extend your revenue streams so that you don't become reliant on that sole, magical, mysterious collector coming along and bankrolling your next 12 months, because it's just not realistic. It's not realistic, and it creates that sense of scarcity. It puts us as creatives in that anxiety, in that worry, and that doesn't make for good creativity.
One very related question I wanted to know: money and sales. We all have the question, but how to deal it at a psychological level that it doesn't affect our art and what we are trying to truly put out?
This is a tough one. right? And I think we all deal with this. One of the best pieces of advice I could do is to early on take emotion out of money. This is really hard, right? Unfortunately, a lot of us have beliefs that have been compounded by our life experiences around money. Most of our money beliefs are formed when we are children, and they're based on how we experience money, right? Whether we grew up with, abundance, or whether we grew up in a situation that was scarce. That relationship will affect you whether you make money or whether you don't make money. Now, I'll give you an example. And I encourage everybody to do this exercise. I grew up in, a working class family, and my mom worked long hours to be able to, give me the things that I needed. And so I grew up thinking that to get money, you have to work really, really, really hard, right? You have to work, you have to be tired at the end of the day. Your feet have to hurt, right? You have to work extremely hard, like physically. How does that affect me as I've gone through my life? Well, the way it affects me is anytime that money came to me easily, I couldn't keep it, because mentally I didn't feel like I deserved it.
Imposter.
Yeah. I didn't work hard enough for this. This came easy. So you got to really, first of all, check yourself and your money beliefs, because even if you make the big bucks, if your relationship with money is off, you probably won't keep it. And I say that from experience. I've been there, and I've had to continue to do this work on just breaking down those limiting beliefs about money so that I can have some financial freedom, and that comes with time, and it comes with practice, and it comes with age, unfortunately. So I think that taking the emotion out of your pricing is a big one. When you set your NFT prices or your physical art piece prices, try to remove the emotion from it, right? Take an assessment of 3 things. What is the market rate right now for an artist like me who has X amount of experience and this style of work, right? What is the market value, right? You don't want to price yourself out of the market value, and you don't want to price yourself below. A lot of people make the mistake of going below, thinking that they will get more sales if they undercut the next artist. The problem that happens when we go low is that it creates a sense of questioning, right? The buyer will look at this work, your artwork, and say, wow, this is a really great piece of artwork, but it's only priced at 0.05 and it's an original? Wait, this must be an edition, right? And then they find it's not an edition. Oh, well, maybe this isn't their actual artwork. Maybe they've replicated somebody else's, because if this was their original artwork and it was a 1 of 1, this price doesn't make sense. So don't think by pricing lower that you're going to attract more collectors. It will actually create that sense of doubt, right? Doesn't mean that everybody should be going in and going high. There are certain things that you need to consider, right? But also just remember that if it doesn't sell immediately, it doesn't mean that it's a failure. There's minimal collectors here right now. The collectors are not even here yet. We are not even scratching the surface. So be patient, right? Be patient with that. I'm not a big believer in putting out tons and tons of work. I think practice, I think play are both really, really important things. I think honing your craft and being playful and letting yourself have your ideas are amazing. I think those things can be done in the studio or can be done behind closed doors. Again, this is something that sometimes I get pushed back from. And I welcome everybody's input and perspective on this. The place I'm coming from is what I've seen work thus far even. And what works is people refining and fine-tuning in the background and then putting out their best work, right? Because that work then becomes more desirable and it has that sense of scarcity around availability, and collectors feel more compelled to actually want a piece of that. So that's kind of my tips. Again, everybody has a right to their perspective, their opinion on this, but that's essentially what I've seen work over the years.
I see you also have read a Banksy book from your previous live cast. I'm having one book with me.
Yay, we love Banksy. I think I have one right here. Yep, I sure do.
That is the one I saw.
Yay! Yep, I love Banksy. I have 2 books here, actually. There's another one. Banksy. We love Banksy.
So in Banksy's case, do you think he has done a lot of practice and not putting, like, he has put out so many works and it's everywhere. So does that limit the supply? Or, I mean, just correlating with the previous point about not oversupplying, but Banksy has so many works out. What do you think about that?
I think Banksy put out so many works over the years that are now becoming valuable, but I don't think Banksy, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't think Banksy experimented in public. I don't think that, the iconic Banksy that we know, the girl with the balloon. Do you think that was Banksy who just said one day, I'm just going to cut out these stencils, I'm going to go hit the street? No, he's probably labored over that idea. He probably sat at his computer ideating, right? Creating, crafting, perfecting before he even created those stencils and started going out there, and it is so iconic. It is so iconic, and his work has continued to be iconic. And, I grew up in Liverpool, as I mentioned, and in Liverpool City Centre, there was a huge piece that he did, which was of a rat. And it was a massive rat, and it was on an old derelict public house. And it was huge. It was like 2 stories high. And we all used to be like, what is that weird, rat thing? And little did we know, it become one of the most iconic and valuable pieces of artwork in our day. And so Banksy is such an outlier. I think one of the biggest reasons why Banksy is so successful is because we still don't know who Banksy is. That anonymous kind of undoxed, as we would now call it here, it creates mystery, it creates a lore, it gives us the opportunity to craft the story around it ourselves. So there's a certain excitement to that. But, yes, he's done, we say he, could be she. Banksy has done incredible
things. It's definitely a he, because he has put out videos.
Yeah, and I have a couple of people who have some theories about who he is and say they've met him, but yeah, you never know.
So, one of the persons in the spaces was like, you need an army of collectors. Even Borrow had some 8,000 or something artworks and people collecting. So again, it's just a continuation to the same point. If not enough people have it, not enough people talk about it, and it doesn't go outwards. So there are some people say, I'm curating myself and I'm just going to put out one artwork in 3 months. But there are some people who are like, whom I mentioned, they're like, keep putting out works. You need an army of collectors behind you for that to reach more people. So what are your comments on that?
I don't think you need an army. I think you need to care deeply about a small group of people. If you care deeply about your collectors and you over-deliver, like you bring them into the fold, especially in this space, because community is everything in Web3. If you do that, that small group, as opposed to the army of 8,000 people, that small group of maybe 10 collectors will market for you. Right? They will become your ambassadors. They will be the people that post your work and talk about how amazing you are and how creative you are, and they will do that work for you. And what happens when you have a small circle of incredible ambassadors? circle starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I say don't go out looking to catch 8,000 fish. Focus on what's in your immediate reach right now and overserve those people, over-deliver to those people, excite and delight those people, and they will become ambassadors for you very naturally.
Wow, I'm excited and looking forward to that. It's time for some rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
Which place is the best for artists in your view?
Physical place?
Yeah, physical.
Geographical? Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be biased and say New York City. Cost of living is not so great, but New York City. Very inspiring. Changed my life.
And do you see that changing with Web3?
Yes.
Anywhere, people anywhere can do this. I had the biggest benefit of this sitting in India. I never thought my art would sell, or I never even showed it to anybody. It used to be like piled on in my room or in my relatives where I used to gift them and stuff like that. But then with Web3, I was like, okay, people are actually paying for that, and not just in India, but around the world. So let me put it out and show. And I was so, then I said, okay, let me do this full time. So it's over a year I've been doing NFTs and podcasts full time. And it fulfills your soul or your purpose of living. So that Web3 is a big, it has opened a new world for me personally and many, many, many more people. I'm trying my best to onboard as many people as possible.
And that just like makes my heart sink. Like what you just said, like the fact that you can be somewhere where you never thought you could show your artwork, and now you can really feel that sense of fulfillment because you know that people are excited by what you do and you have this global audience. That changes everything. You know, one of the reasons I started Conception Arts was because I hated the antiquated art world. I hated that system, that it was only for the elite, it was only for the privileged few. If we want to make Web3 exceptional, we have to continue to allow and champion and elevate artists from everywhere. Imagine being able to collaborate. Imagine you being able to collaborate with an artist in the US or somebody in a remote village in Nigeria being able to collaborate with someone in Australia. All of those things are possible. We now have the technology to be able to do that. And that is thrilling.
Even I've been able to sell my physical artworks because of NFTs. So I shipped a couple of 4 artworks last year to US and 1 others in India, other places. So that's been wonderful. When I talk to my relatives, they are like always surprised that how, because in my circles or over here, art is something which is totally considered as hobby. You don't make money out of this. It's for self-entertainment. And people start wondering, why would people actually pay for this? Why do people actually want this? It doesn't fit in their mind or in that sense of money that they have grown up with, that something that is easily available. Like if it is online, you can easily right click save or see it. Or if it is a painting, you can just get it anyways. Or what's the big deal about it? But proving it to them with my sales or with my collectors or what people are doing, it makes them more proud, and it works in reverse ways. Now they go outside and talk more about it.
Let me tell you, I have a private client who I've been working with for 2 years. Her name is Ashley, and she's amazing. And when we started working together, the most she'd ever sold a piece for, she creates these amazing antler chandelier glass, beautiful installations. The most she'd ever sold for was $1,000. Okay, we worked together. She was a part of my Art Biz Bootcamp program, and then we worked together privately. Last year, she sold a piece for $25,000.
Whoa.
Now, the reason that what changed, right? First of all, she changed her beliefs, her personal beliefs about what was possible. Second of all, she stopped listening to the people around her and their understanding of what her worth is, what her artistic worth is. Unfortunately, all of us, most of us, are surrounded by people who have the same old antiquated ideas about what art is worth and the role that art plays in society. Those people, they're not small-minded people, they're intelligent people, they're our loved ones, but they've been conditioned to believe that art is worth minimal, right? That it doesn't have value in society. When you surround yourself with people that understand the worth of art and you start to believe it yourself, anything is possible. When I said to Ashley, you need to price that piece above $20,000, and she almost fell off her chair. By the time she went to the show and put that price tag on and it sold, it was a life-changing moment for her, right? And it was because she believed it. You know, I saw a quote very recently that I just loved, and I hope that everybody can take this away with them. And it said simply, know your worth and add tax.
Oh.
Yeah. So, you know, just know that you're worth more. And art is worth more. And if you think you're worth, you know, think your NFT's worth 1 ETH, make it 1.5. Step out of your comfort zone. Ignore what people around you say, because it's not their fault, but they're not exposed to where this is going. And that's okay. But you have to know your worth.
And I guess have patience, because the next question that people start having is, what if it doesn't sell for 2-3 months or a whole year? What do I do? Is it right price or no? So what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, Ashley's a prime example. She created work, you know, that she's not sold yet. It's sitting in her studio. But then just last week, she got a commission for $35,000. You know, so you could go a whole year without making a sale. And then you can make a biggie. You never know what's coming. But consistency, you know, separating emotion from money, working on your own money beliefs, limiting beliefs, showing up for yourself every day in your art business, treating it as a profession, right? Making sure you're taking daily actions to move your art business forward. And what are you doing this week to get your NFTs seen? Ask yourself that every single week. And if you continue to take action, it's going to happen. It's just the way of the universe.
Wow. Brilliant. Just gems coming out. Next rapid fire question. What are the name 3 people, living or dead, that you would like to have lunch with?
Ooh, that's a toughie. Okay. I would like to have lunch with Princess Diana. Got a lot of questions for Princess Diana. I think she was an amazing human. I met her when I was very young, too young to remember. I would like to have lunch with Lee Krasner. She was the wife of Jackson Pollock, but an amazing artist in her own right. And I'd also like to have lunch with Peggy Guggenheim. Peggy champions so many artists, and I feel a synergy to Peggy. I went to her house in Venice. I think she was a character. I've read her book. So yeah, that would be my 3.
And what questions would you ask them if you had one question to ask?
Diana, I would want to know, was she pregnant with Dodi Al-Fayed's baby? Lee Krasner, I would want to ask, did she ever see a pathway to success? Or did she just support her husband because she loved him? And then Peggy Guggenheim, I'd say, which artist surprised you the most out of the ones that made it?
What advice would you like to give your younger self?
Oh,
20-year-old.
That's a great question. I would say stop trying to fit into what society tells you is success. and stop dyeing your hair so much. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, stop trying to be something that you think is success. Stop trying to fit into a mold that is not made for you, and just, be true to yourself. It gets better.
It gets better. Yeah. You're an avid reader. What is your favorite book
Of all time?
Yeah.
I gotta look at my bookshelf. I don't think I have a favorite book, because I like to read a lot of bios. I read a lot of autobiographies and biographies. I prefer to have that human experience, like see what other people have dealt with and how they've contended with it in their lives. Gosh, that is a really tough question. I'm trying to see if there's something that pops out to me on my shelf. What has really stuck with me? I honestly would struggle to answer that. I think there's so many. I think one of the most profound books on creativity that I've ever read is Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic.
Yes, I've read that too. It's amazing.
Right? I think that just underlined for me like who we are as artists. Like the idea that when somebody says something that you've had ruminating in your head but you hadn't quite found words for, that's what Liz Gilbert's book did for me. And it was the idea that it was about ideas, that she said creativity and ideas are kind of floating along in the wind, and you only get a quick second to grab them, right? You have to grab them before they go to somebody else. That was like visceral for me. I remember reading that and thinking, that's how it feels, right? When you feel inspired by something, it comes out of nowhere. You feel like you have to grab it and go to the studio, and you have to do it really, really quickly before it vanishes and disappears. So that was pretty profound for me.
She even describes it as an organism, right? It's alive, it's idea. You need to work on it, entertain it, or even like she used to get ready, like makeup and all that, on a date with the idea.
Yeah, and it also aligns really well with a quote by Chuck Close, who I was able to get to know, the last couple of years before he passed away. But he said inspiration is great, but it has to find you working, right?
Yeah.
That's why we show up every day. That's why we continue to push ourselves, is because inspiration is much more likely to come when you're working.
Amazing. What is the current book you're reading?
Right now? Revisiting this. Have you read it?
The War of Art.
Yes.
I've read The Art of War.
Yeah, no, this is much thinner. This is a fantastic book because it talks about just how we can get out of our own way as creatives. If you don't have the bandwidth to read it, I recommend the audiobook. It's by Stephen Pressfield, and it's just a good kick in the ass, right? That we sometimes need as creatives. So, highly recommend. It's a good read.
Ian Banksy has written a book on similar play of words, The Wall of Art.
That's right. That's right.
What is your favorite movie?
Oof. I feel like this is like saying, what is your favorite painting? Like, it's so hard, right? Like, what movies have like emotionally just moved me? This is probably going to be really surprising and really sappy, but one of the movies that like changed my life was actually When a Man Loves a Woman, because it's a story about where Meg Ryan is an alcoholic, and she has a terrible, just her life falls apart, right? And she's about to lose everything, and she gets sober. And I remember watching that movie during my active alcoholism, And I remember just weeping after watching that scene where she's in the shower and she's so drunk out of her mind that she falls through the shower and her baby's in the other room crying. And I get choked up even thinking about it now because she was in so much denial, right? And she was hurting so much, but she was continuing on this path. And I was there too. And seeing somebody's artistry be able to convey that life experience in a way that filmmaker was able to do that actually was one of the I don't want to say it was the reason I got sober, but it was something that always stuck in my mind as that could be me. Like that could be me. And, I've been sober by the grace of God. I've been sober for 9 years. And so I think that, when we ask, even just going back to that question that you asked earlier, like what is the importance of art? And art takes many shapes and many forms, right? It's film, it's music, it's dance, it's, photography, it's painting, it's all of the things. But you could touch somebody's life and change somebody's life with your artistry, just like that person who wrote that scene, who filmed that scene, did for me. And I think that is something that is just profound.
Beautiful. What are the social and charitable causes, if any, that are close to you?
A lot. Charitable causes. I love anything related to helping LGBTQ kids who are homeless, anybody who's out there on the streets struggling and doesn't have a roof over their head because of their sexuality. That's extremely important to me as somebody who, went through a struggle of coming out and finding myself. I know how hard that is, even when you have a loving and supportive family. So those that have been through that experience and found themselves homeless, the teenage LGBTQ suicide rates are astronomical. We have to do better. Social causes that are extremely important to me. Allyship, showing up.
Sorry?
And allyship, being better.
What happens in that?
Well, just being a better ally to our,
Okay.
our people of color, to, people who have different lived experiences to us. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dog whistling in the Web3 space. There's a lot of people talking about diversity and equity and inclusion and wearing that badge of honor that they are communities who are focused on diversity. And when you look, under the hood, there's not a lot of action that's actually happening. So I'm somebody that is a big believer that everybody deserves an equal seat at the table. I, will continue to advocate for people who have less a slice of the pie in Web3, and I will continue to challenge the narrative. So yeah, that is something that is incredibly important to me.
Wow. I saw your post about those three men standing in equality, equity, and then the other one, which is reality. Mm-hmm. That is a good portrayal of that. Again, what art does in representing what is happening around.
Right. Sometimes words can't explain, right? You need an image.
Yeah.
When words are lost, art speaks. I said that once, and that was the HuffPost put that in an article, and it stays with me a lot. And when there are no words, art speaks.
You should start a hashtag, Rachel Quotes, and then people can search all your quotes with that.
Oh my gosh, you're so kind. I wish I was that important.
You are, and putting those ideas in small number of words, it is like an art. It's like an image, right? So it compounds, it brings those ideas together. So, I mean, I've quoted you 5 times during this podcast. So. And you just added another one. So please, that could be a good idea. Hashtag Rachel Quotes.
Well, I appreciate you.
What is on your bucket list next?
That's a big question. I want to travel more. I just came back from an amazing trip, just driving and exploring the west of America. I need to do more of that. I need to be in nature more. I realized it's good for my soul. I want to create something that builds lasting sustainability for creatives. I want to be a part of solutions to real world problems. I want to help guide those who are gatekeepers or those who are decision makers in Web 2. I want to help guide them into Web 3 in a way that is authentic, in a way that solves real world problems, social, economic problems. I want to connect the dots for them. I want to help, get them onboarded into Web 3 in a way that is not economically centered. I started a conference called Blockchain for Social Good, which we hosted in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, actually, in June. And we plan to host in Miami during Art Basel this year. So bucket list is to see that really take off and, just be a good human. Leave the world better than I found it, right? I think that's all we can endeavor to do and make it easier for people to come through. Like that's always been the driving force behind, why I founded Conception Arts was I didn't want people to go through the negative experiences that I went through to have success. So I think, just having that ethos of like, let's leave things better for those who are coming behind.
Wow. Best wishes to you, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time. Any concluding thoughts for the audience?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tanmay, for taking the time and for inviting me. I appreciate you, and I really recognize your service and your work that you do for this community. So, round of applause for you! Yay! Woohoo! And yeah, I just continue just. Be playful, right? Be playful, explore, experiment. Remember why we're here. Web3 is about the technology, right? Web3 is the new iteration of the internet. What does that mean for you? But yes, have fun, be consistent, show up for yourself on a daily basis because nobody else will.
Wow. Thank you so much. And you mentioned many times that this was a tough one and this was a hard question. So I would take that as a compliment.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good interviewer. So you did great.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead and wish you the best of success for all your future bucket lists and all what you're doing. We just love you, your presence, your thought leadership in the space and what you've been doing for the community. And I hope many more people get inspired, not just listening to your this podcast, but listening to your videos and reading your books. And if possible, get a private tutor. What do you call that? Private session with Rachel.
Private coaching. Yep.
Private coaching with Rachel.
Yeah, they fill up pretty fast, but I will. There's always room, but it might not be for a couple of months. But yes. Okay. Definitely reach out and say hello.
I'll be dropping all the links below, guys. You can check it out. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, Tanmay. Much love.
Are mentioned in the show notes. We will be back next week with another fantastic episode.